The biggest threat to your savings right now isn't the stock market crashing. It's not inflation eating away at your groceries. It's not even rising interest rates strangling your mortgage. It's something so fundamental, so deeply embedded in every transaction you make, that most people won't see it coming until it's far too late. It's the US dollar itself. My name is Marcos, and I spend an unreasonable amount of time studying currency cycles, monetary policy, and the invisible forces that silently transfer wealth from the unprepared to the informed. Most financial channels will tell you to just buy index funds and wait, but they're completely ignoring the one variable that affects the value of every single asset you own, the currency it's priced in. Today I'm going to show you exactly what's happening. Picture this. You've been doing everything right. You've been saving diligently, investing consistently, watching your portfolio grow year after year. You check your brokerage account and see a number that makes you feel proud. But here's the part that should terrify you. That number is lying to you. Because while your account balance went up by 12% last year, the purchasing power of every single dollar inside it dropped by more than you realize. You're running on a treadmill and someone keeps turning up the speed. You feel like you're making progress, but you're barely staying in place. And this isn't some abstract economic theory. This is your rent. This is your grocery bill. This is the reason a house that cost $187,000 in 2003 now costs $412,000. Same house, same neighborhood, same number of bedrooms, completely different price tag. The dollar has lost over 97% of its purchasing power since the Federal Reserve was created in 1913. 97%. Let that sink in for a moment. Your great-grandparents' dollar is now worth about 3 cents, and the pace of that destruction is accelerating. You start asking yourself, if this has been happening for over a century, why does nobody talk about it? Why isn't this on the front page of every financial news outlet? But here's the part that most people completely miss, and it might be the most important point in this entire video. The dollar doesn't just lose value randomly. It follows a precise, measurable pattern that you can actually track, and when you see the numbers, you'll understand why this moment in history is genuinely different from anything we've experienced before. Between 2020 and 2023, the United States government created roughly 40% of all dollars that have ever existed. Let me say that again. 40% of every dollar ever printed in the history of this country appeared in just 3 years. That's not a typo. That's not an exaggeration. That is a mathematical fact. Let me put this in terms that actually hit home. Meet John. John is a careful saver. He kept $100,000 in a high-yield savings account back in January 2020. He felt responsible. He felt safe. By December 2023, his account still showed roughly $107,000 with interest. John smiled every time he checked the balance. But here's what John didn't see. The real purchasing power of his money, adjusted for true asset inflation, not the government's polished CPI number, dropped to approximately $71,000 in 2020 terms. John lost nearly $30,000 of real wealth while his screen showed him a number going up. His bank account was gaslighting him. And this doesn't just affect people with savings accounts. Every single asset priced in dollars, your 401k, your home equity, your salary, is subject to this invisible erosion. The Dow Jones hit a record high of 39,872 in early 2024. Sounds incredible, right? But when you price that same index in gold, in real assets, the picture is devastating. The Dow priced in gold is still below its year 2000 peak. 24 years of supposed growth, and in real terms, the stock market hasn't moved. This is the illusion of nominal gains. Your portfolio goes up, your home value goes up, your salary goes up. But the ruler you're using to measure all of it, the dollar, is shrinking. It's like measuring your height with a ruler that loses an inch every year. You feel taller, but you haven't grown at all. Here's where things get really interesting, and this is something that will probably surprise you. There's a psychological phenomenon called money illusion, first described by economist Irving Fisher in 1928. It's the tendency for people to think about money in nominal terms, the number on the screen, rather than real terms, what that number can actually buy, and it is the single most exploited cognitive bias in modern economics. Before you understood this, you probably felt okay about a 3% raise at work. You might have even celebrated it. After you understand dollar erosion, you realize that a 3% raise in a year where true inflation ran at 7 or 8% isn't a raise at all. It's a pay cut with a congratulations email. This is how the system works. The government borrows in today's dollars and repays in tomorrow's weaker dollars. It's the most elegant wealth transfer in human history, and the people who lose are always the ones who don't understand what's happening. Think about your parents or grandparents. They could buy a home on a single income. A teacher's salary could support a family of 4. A summer job could pay for a year of college tuition. Those aren't nostalgic exaggerations. Those are mathematical realities that no longer exist, specifically because the unit of measurement we call a dollar has been systematically devalued. Your brain resists this. Psychologists call it normalcy bias, the assumption that because things have always been a certain way in your lifetime, they will continue that way. But the data doesn't support the assumption. The Congressional Budget Office projects the national debt will hit $51.4 trillion by 2033. The interest payments alone on that debt now exceed the entire defense budget. We are spending more to service our debt than to defend the country, and the only historically consistent way governments have dealt with debt at this scale is by printing more money, which means more dilution, which means your dollars buy less. You start asking yourself, if this is the game, how do I stop losing? But here's where most people mess this up, and I see it constantly. The instinct most people have when they hear about dollar devaluation is to panic. They rush into gold, they throw everything into crypto, they buy a bunker and stockpile canned goods, and while I understand the impulse, the data tells a completely different story. The people who have historically thrived during periods of currency devaluation aren't the ones who ran away from the system. They're the ones who understood the system and positioned themselves inside it, on the right side. Let me give you a concrete example. Cierre bought a modest rental property in 2015 for $263,000 with a fixed-rate mortgage. By 2024, that property was worth roughly $418,000. But here's the counterintuitive part. Her mortgage payment stayed exactly the same. She locked in a debt at a specific dollar amount, and then the dollar she used to repay that debt became worth less every single year. The bank gave her money that was worth something. She's paying it back with money that's worth less. That's not a bug. That's a feature. This is the fundamental principle that separates people who build wealth during inflationary periods from people who get destroyed by them. The wealthy borrow in today's strong dollars and repay in tomorrow's weaker ones. They own assets that rise in nominal value while their fixed debts become easier to pay. Meanwhile, the person sitting in cash, the person who thinks they're being responsible by keeping money in the bank, they are the ones funding this entire transfer. It's like two people standing on an escalator. One person is walking up the down escalator. That's the saver. They're working hard, sweating, putting in effort, and barely moving. The other person is standing still on the up escalator. That's the asset owner. They're doing nothing, and they're rising effortlessly. The escalator is the dollar losing value. It punishes one and rewards the other. The person driving the flashy car financed with debt might actually understand something that the person with $300,000 in a savings account doesn't. Not all debt is destruction. Some debt is a tool. Let me give you a number that will put this in perspective. If you had put $10,000 into the S&P 500 in January 1990, by January 2024, you'd have approximately $216,000. That sounds extraordinary. But now let's run the same number adjusted for real purchasing power. That $216,000 buys you what roughly $98,000 would have bought in 1990. Still a gain, but dramatically less impressive than the headline number suggests. Now compare that to someone who bought real estate with leverage. A $10,000 down payment on a $50,000 property in 1990, even with modest appreciation and rental income, would have generated returns that fundamentally outpaced the dollar's decline. The leverage magnified the gain while the debt was eroded by the very force that was eating the saver alive. Historical data backs this up consistently. During the Weimar Republic's hyperinflation in 1920s, Germany, people who held cash were devastated. People who held debt on real assets, land, buildings, factories, emerged wealthier in real terms than they started. During the inflationary decade of the 1970s in the United States, the same pattern repeated. Real estate investors thrived. Bondholders and savers were crushed. The pattern is not complicated. In every single period of sustained currency devaluation throughout recorded financial history, three asset classes consistently outperform everything else: real estate financed with fixed-rate debt, equities in companies with strong pricing power that can pass costs to consumers, and hard commodities like gold, silver, and energy. The data spans over 300 years across dozens of economies and hundreds of currency crises. This isn't speculation, this is an opinion, this is historical gravity. And here's the part nobody in finance will tell you openly: the system needs you to hold cash, the system needs savers, because every dollar you keep in a bank account at 2 or 3% while real inflation runs at 6 or 7% represents a wealth transfer from you to the borrowers, to the government, to anyone positioned on the other side of this equation. And this is where the math starts getting really exciting. Understanding dollar devaluation doesn't just change your portfolio, it changes who you are. It changes how you think about every financial decision you make for the rest of your life. Before you understood this, you were a saver. You measured progress by the number in your bank account. You felt safe when that number was high. You felt anxious when it dipped. Your entire relationship with money was built on a foundation that was quietly crumbling beneath you. After you understand this, you become something fundamentally different. You become someone who thinks in purchasing power, not dollar amounts. You stop celebrating nominal gains and start demanding real returns. You understand that a salary negotiation isn't about getting a bigger number, it's about outpacing the invisible tax that erodes every paycheck you receive. Your career decisions change. You stop chasing the highest salary and start building assets that appreciate faster than the dollar depreciates. Your investment decisions change. You stop parking money in savings accounts out of fear and start acquiring things that the system is fundamentally designed to make more expensive over time. Your relationship with debt changes, your confidence changes, because you're no longer confused by the illusion, you see the matrix. This is what separates the financially literate from the financially deceived. It's not about how much money you make, it's about whether you understand the game the money is playing against you. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. The question isn't whether the dollar will continue to lose value. 111 years of uninterrupted data tells you the answer. The question is whether you'll be positioned on the winning side of that equation or the losing side. Remember that feeling I described at the beginning? Checking your account? Seeing a number that makes you proud? That feeling is real, but the security behind it might not be. The dollar collapse isn't a future event. It's not something that might happen someday. It's a process that's been happening for over a century, and right now it's accelerating faster than at any point in modern history. But now you understand the mechanics, you understand the psychology, you understand who wins and who loses in this equation. You're no longer the person running on the treadmill wondering why you can't get ahead. You become the type of person who sees the invisible forces that move wealth and positions themselves accordingly. Start today. Start with the next dollar you earn. Because the game has already begun, the clock is ticking, and now you finally know the rules. If this changed how you think about money, check out this video to understand how rich people think. It goes even deeper into what you should actually understand about them.